Did you have a rough year on this? Was this around 1995-ish, 94 in that area?
Yes. I
Okay.
don't, I don't actually know. I mean, I'm sure I could go back. I'm not that guy that keeps scrapbooks and everything or is organized. I have boxes of stuff, flyers, and you name it under my bed in boxes and haven't looked at it in forever. Um, I trained with Bill Ash
Mhm.
and I had contacted Power Plant. I was told, yes, you can come in. Our cutoff is this, but if you get in the best shape of your life, basically we'll take your money before we try to run you off because, I think historically we look at that and see that that's what they did.
Yeah.
But I had a friend of mine that said, hey, I saw this commercial on Saturday for a local wrestling promotion with a school. And he said, now I'm going to be honest with you. He said the production values were terrible, but it looks like the school was might be decent. It's something you can check out. And I'm living at that point. I'm married with two kids and a house payment and car payments and a dog, and I'm doing the life. And I contact Bill Ash, who is in Paris, Arkansas. I'm roughly 2 hours away, maybe a little less, and introduce myself. And he says, "Well, I'll tell you what, if you'll come out, um, basically you come out dress in shorts and tennis shoes. First one is free. If you decide you want to do it, we'll talk. If you decide you don't want to do it, no hard feelings." So I drove to Paris, Arkansas, and again, you can't. There's a lot of things you can't teach. Size is one of them, and I was a big guy, but I was the most unnatural at taking bumps as probably anybody. I don't want to say in the history of wrestling, but it was not natural for me at all. And it got to a point on that day where Bill Ash, who was a little at the time, and I say this because I look back and think, wow, he was too old to be doing that. I'm older than him now, but he was probably in his mid 50s, a little pot bellied, balding with glasses. But Bill was a legend. He was a light heavyweight. He wrestled. He's anybody who is from old school wrestling. When I tell them I trained with Bill Ash, I get instant uh, credibility because they know who he is and they know how good he was. And Bill got in my face after telling me, okay, I want you to take 2 steps. I want you to jump up as high as you can, do a front flip and land on your back. And I took about 3 false steps, and Bill got in my face and just cussed me a blue streak. And he said, you said you wanted to do this? This is what you said you wanted to do? We'll either do it or go out and get in the car and go home. And I mean, I was like, okay, okay. I did it. I landed on the top of my head, and he congratulated me, and it got better from there. I was never a great bumper. At one point in my career, I felt like as a big guy I could bump. That's gone now. Now I'm not. I can't even do. I don't do that well anymore, but I get through it. So Bill would sit in the corner in a fold-out chair with a 2x4 over his knees and talk to us. Occasionally, he would get up and teach. He had a younger guy named Jeff Jett, who I become friends with through the training, who did a lot of the training at the time. And the way Bill's technique was, he had a couple of things. He said, you can only remember 2 things a week. So I'm not going to teach you a bunch of stuff. So he would teach us, here's the lockup, here's an armbar. And the way he taught was, this is how you take an armbar and break somebody's arm. Here's how you take it to not break their arm. And he did not smarten me up.
Oh,
He
wow.
just said, here's how you don't break their arm. And a lot of our training, first off, the ceiling was probably, I'm just guessing, actually went by there about 6 months ago, and the building is there. Obviously, the school's not. It's now like an electrician shop or something. But it was a 10-foot ceiling. You couldn't stand on the second rope without hitting your head on the ceiling. So there was no high flying going
Oh,
on. Hole in the ceiling, the classic canvas that if it rained, if you bumped, you would just slide out of the ring because it wasn't a true canvas. It was like a tarp. Um, and most of our training was legitimate, what we call rolling. It's time to roll. And we
mhm.
would just get in there and grapple. And because of my size, it took a while before anybody figured out how to just not let me lay on them and be athletic enough that I could control them. And it happened. Jeff Jett did it, and and finally got top position. But that was most of what the training was. And when I got to the first match with Bill, in a tag match, was completely unprepared for. I honestly, I didn't know what a work was.
That's so fascinating. Before we get into your first match, how big was your class roughly? Like, I know some schools, obviously you have the performance center, which is like 100 people,
Mm.
but most schools, from what I see, tend to be 15 to 20, sometimes 10 people. Was that roughly what yours was?
It probably wasn't even that. It was probably 6 or 8,
Okay.
and then you would have guys come and go. Um, Wrestling in general is physically demanding, and the way that Bill trained was he made possibly even more demanding. So you had a lot of guys that would come like I did one time and never come back.
Mhm.
You'd have guys come and get hurt in the first. I completely shredded my knee. Uh, I don't even know. We had a trick. Like Jeff, I was hungry. I wanted to learn and I wanted to understand how things worked. And so Bill would run his class. To answer your question, like 6 or 8 people. But Bill would run his class. We would walk outside. He'd lock the door. We'd stand outside at the cars and talk for a little bit. Bill would go home. Jeff would reach into the back of his truck and pull out a screwdriver and pop the lock on the building. And then Jeff and I would go back in, and Jeff would work with me. And first time we hit it, that I started realizing, okay, you can put some of these things together. And I misunderstood something, and I don't know, tore my ACL, my MCL, and it's from where I'm from, football. You basically taped it up and did the best you could, and I limped for about a year. Matter of fact, you asked me the other day something about Nelson. King Mabel.
Yeah.
And I got one of my first TV matches. I wrestled Hacksaw Butch Reed. I had that same night I wrestled Mabel, and I did most of that with my ACLs are still torn. I never had those repaired, but no stability in my knee ever. And it's just, to me, it's old school wrestling, and you fight through it and you do the best you can, and hopefully it heals up. And that's just the way we were taught. That's not the way it works today, but that's the way we were trained.